Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1079 of our daily content grind. And just as I was trying to figure out what video to go with today, oh boy, did some big stuff drop. Big enough that I really don't want to wait for tomorrow's news roundup to cover it, even though we'll probably go through a really quick refresher, because this puts a lot of thoughts into my head, and this gives us a lot of things to consider. So, listings have been found for the replacement for Earthspark, and it is officially called Transformers Cyberworld. We had a bit of a back and forth over on Twitter recently, like a few hours ago, about how Hasbro seems to try to stick to its own terminology when it comes to these Transformer cartoons, either just taking something they already have trademarked or just making something that's very similar to an existing trademark. And I don't think they've really come up with an interesting, like, completely different title since Transformers Armada. I mean, what do we have? Energon and Cybertron. Okay, already had those covered. We're excluding Transformers Animated because that's just them being literal. But for creating names, Transformers Prime. Obviously, I think they've used Prime a few times before that series came out. Cyberverse, well, that's a holdover from Dark of the Moon's mini toy line. Already had the trademark for that. In fact, I believe that's the series where they just kind of walked in one day and said, your show's name is Cyberverse. Robots in Disguise, twice. And then Earthspark is either a derivative of Earthrise, or which would have been a thing at the time of conception of the series, or it would have been based on just the spark part of the title. Either way, Cyberworld again just kind of feels like a take on Cyberverse. Again, just feels like a very familiar term, and in a way that's almost concerning. So I want you to point out, so I'm going to admit there's not going to be a whole lot of visual examples. I'll pop here and there as we discuss these listings, but for the most part, you're going to be listening to me pontificate and speculate. Two of my favorite things to do on this channel. It makes me realize that, like, if there are listings for these toys already, then Hasbro had the replacement for Earthspark in mind back in Season 1's production. Something they did or saw about the series reaction or the toy sales, even back then, informed them that they needed to devise the next series, because typically we know Transformer series like to go 3 years, right? So, and 3 seasons for a series. We're only in Season 2 of Earthspark. We know it's canceled at this point. This is further confirmation. Nothing from the showrunners, nothing from, like, any official source, but with the listings out, we pretty much know, yeah, line's canceled. Which is unfortunate. I hate to see that. Is what it is, unfortunately. But for now, I look at these and I think to myself, like, jeez, they gave up on Earthspark pretty quick if they were already ready. Because if these listings are already here, then these should be, we should see these in about, sometime around the next 6 months. Potentially even before the year is out, depending on how fast they came up with this replacement. I'm very, very curious as to what this will all entail. However, the listings are for the toy line, so we can glean a little bit from that, and we're starting straight off with CC Mirage. I'm going to jump down the list here and spoil what CC is. So, because at the very bottom, we have Cyberworld Cyber Changers assortment, which is the product number and the item number for the entire, like basically a case assortment of it. So I'm presuming that everything marked CC in these listings are for individual items, which would mean, yeah, this is this is what we're getting as far as, like, basic simple Transformers. If a cyber changer equates to a prime changer, that we currently have in the Transformers 1 toy line, that would mean we are looking at potentially the beginnings and the first listings for the most basic of toys for the series. Those $15 warrior class, or like below deluxe class toys. No real gimmicks, or potentially like simple gimmicks that are mainly just there to be easy Transformers for kids. kind of stuff that kind of doesn't do well at retail, but maybe that's just my area. I don't know. Point being, it seems like a lot of these listings lean toward that. CC Mirage. If Mirage is this early in the assortment, I have to assume that Mirage is going to be much closer based to the Rise of the Beast version rather than the vintage G1. Because of all the things that Rise of the Beast did, like the movie itself, I think is better than a lot of the Bayverse movies, but I still think fell victim to a lot of the tropes and still wasn't as good as, say, Bumblebee. So one of the things that did come out of it that seemed to be a net positive for everybody was Mirage. Seemed to be very well received. He was treated the way a character in a movie should be treated. He's not viewed as like a prop or like a set piece or, a CG special effect. He's actually like given character arc. He's actually treated correctly. So this might be them taking the best of what Rise of the Beast had and actually adapting it for the new cartoon. I would like that. I would kind of like that Mirage to kind of escape it, but that kind of enters him into this very crowded field of young upstart Autobots who just happen to be really good at what they do. So, your modern Bumblebee, your Hot Rod, now Mirage. So, who knows? Who knows? We continue on. Cyberworld Scorponok Strike Battle. This feels like a multi-pack thing. Like, Scorponok Strike Battle, like, it feels like a multi-pack thing of, like, you have one Scorponok toy, and then, like, figurines, or, like, another smaller Transformer. Like, this feels like a gift set of, like, this is Scorponok on the attack. It's an interesting listing. It's a very interesting listing for me. I would love any kind of, like, here's the fear is that it's going to be like a more modern Scorponok where they tend to be just like grunts. I'm still after that, like, kind of Voyager scale, like kind of Marvel comic proportion or like IDW proportion in size Scorponok, that isn't Titan sized. Love my Titan. Want a small one. Maybe this is it. Maybe Scorponok's actually getting some attention. Maybe. Armor Galvatron is a fascinating listing. Armor Galvatron seems to bring up a few things. Let's see if I can find it in my notes here. So when you bring up, like, Armor Galvatron, these Cyberverse toys come to mind. The ones with the flip-out armor. And these are like the Cyberverse Ultra class, I believe. Whatever it is. A lot of these were actually really good. Some of them felt bizarrely, like, primitive, but some of them, like Clobber here, felt like fully fleshed out figures that also just happened to have, a somewhat cool gimmick. I actually got to thinking, what if it's a Megatron toy where you pull out the back and the armor flips down and it becomes Galvatron? How cool would that be? I would love that. But no, what's fascinating to me here is that we've got Galvatron listed at all. When's the last time Galvatron was even in, like, a TV cartoon? He was in the Netflix series, but then again, like, we don't like the Netflix series, so who cares? It's fascinating that he's come up, though. Like to see that. Here's another one that's fascinating. Skybite is in the first listings. I'm curious because that gives us two animal characters already in Scorponok and Skybite, and it really makes me wonder if they are going a little bit different with this series after all. One of my concerns with the next iteration of Transformers was that they were going to avoid what was going on in Earthspark by actually, like, my worry was going to avoid what was happening in Earthspark by going back to basics. Not trying to do anything like weird or experimental, but we might. It sounds like we actually might, and I love the idea that Skybite's getting some full attention. The next listing is Meg Bull, and okay, we have a Megatron toy. Why is it named Meg Bull? Now I'm really curious. Are we actually getting more animalistic villains? Because it seems like everything that's mentioned here that is obviously a Decepticon is all animalistic. And also, we have a Megatron listing alongside a Galvatron listing. What is going to happen here? Now I'm really curious. This is fascinating to me. This is bringing up possibilities here. I'm actually loving this. CC Snarl. We got a Grimlock on the list I'm going to talk about here in a second, but yeah, it looks like Snarl's going to be in it. Now, keep in mind, if there's more animalistic intentions behind this, it might not necessarily be G1 Dinobot Snarl. It might actually be, like, either Cybertron-based Snarl, the Wolf, or, you know, Beast Wars Snarl. I mean, pie and, like shooting for the moon here, but, like, maybe we might actually get something different and not just another round of Dinobots. But then again, Dinobots are guaranteed sellers, so maybe this is a way of like anchoring the series onto something that is less risky. That's another possibility as well, so we will see. But right now, it's just him and Grimlock on the list. We have a listing for a Cyber Changer Optimus Prime Off-Road. And I haven't... It's interesting to see a weird take on Optimus Prime right away. When I think of Off-Road, I think like these kind of truck Optimus Primes. They're like more boxy, heavier tires. You know, that's not a semi-truck. It's made for, like, heavy terrain. So, something like this. But the fact that it's, like, one of the first listings is surprising. We don't have a normal Optimus Prime listed anywhere in here. And they're already going to something that's a little bit more gimmicky and offbeat, which is fascinating. This is, again, an interesting development. Chomp and Battle Grimlock. I'm presuming with a name like that, this is going to be one of the bigger gimmick figures. Cyberverse had their Ultimate Grimlock that had a bunch of gimmicks that were akin to that. But the Chomp thing is different. And again, it's kind of reminiscent. So Stomp and Chomp Grimlock was a thing at one time. It came out for Age of Extinction, and then they haphazardly repainted it and tried to make it look like R.I.D. Grimlock, which was like one of the worst, one of the like most blatant reuses I've ever seen. Like, looked nothing like him, obviously. Kind of funny when you think about it. Kind of funny when you look at it. But yeah, this really feels like it's just going to be the big gimmicky Grimlock toy of the line. And then we have Armored Cyber Changers. So we have Cyber Changers, which we see a bunch of listings for and some very interesting character names. But we also have Armored Cyber Changers. Where is my picture for that? Because it puts me in the mind of things like this from Rise of the Beasts. Like the armor that comes down onto the smaller robot. These are fine, but they're kind of hit and miss for me. I think it throws the proportions off a little bit too much for it to really be convincing. If I'm really, like, getting my hopes up here, where is it? I'm more in the mindset of these things. You know, the Cyberverse ones where they had a little figure or a little vehicle or animal or something that could come apart and recombine into armor for them. That would be my preference. That sounds cool. So that would be my idea. If I'm the one running things, this is what I would make Armored Cyber Changers. But it seems like they are going a little bit heavier on that size class, which makes sense. So that way they can release more characters at that, you know, particular style without having to like bulk at like dump out too many figures at the same price point. This way they can have a larger price point, more toy, more play value, but the core transformer inside the box could potentially be just the same size as the other Cyber Changers, so you can have a more complete and full roster. That is potentially going to fix a problem that they've had with these toy lines since they started doing this with Cyberverse, which is just getting a consistent cast out and getting everybody out in the same size class. I don't care if it's Warrior or Deluxe or whatever it is. I want a full cast, which has been kind of difficult to get. You know, I will even forego, you know, getting them in scale. But like the Prime Changers that we've gotten so far, they're sans gimmick. They're fine. They're just fine. They're just cheap Transformers, and there's been some that are kind of meh, but there's also some that have been really impressive for what they are and for how much they cost. So if they want to take this design and go, okay, let's add armor to it, and, you know, just to kind of get more characters out and give it a little bit more play value, I'm all for that. My fear with this series, you know, these are just the thoughts that came to my mind as soon as we started seeing these listings. Like I said, it's pretty apparent that Earthspark got canceled, or they decided to move on from Earthspark pretty early, which tells me that the initial sales for the toy line was probably so bad they started hitting emergency buttons. Season 2 had already been greenlit, very early, so they were committed to that. But season 3 obviously gets canceled. I don't know what the show's going to do about that. I hope they had time to fix everything before they got cut. And then my concern here is that Earthspark, I think, is a really good show, but season 2, I will admit, feels like it goes back to safe stories and safe tropes for animation, and kind of does away with some of the things that makes the series unique, and I think that's a mistake. I think Hasbro might have seen how different it was in season 1, saw some reactions, and went, maybe we went too far, maybe we should have had a little bit more control over this. It definitely feels like season 2 has a little bit more Hasbro meddling in it, and I can guarantee whatever they do for the next series is going to be a little bit safer. They're definitely using interesting characters, but I feel like we're not going to take the risks that Earthspark took. Let's get this straight. Earthspark is a good cartoon. You can have your different opinion on that. I will have mine. I have enjoyed the series as a whole. I do feel like a subpar toy line, as well as just Cartoon Network really not doing anything good with the series, and not really, putting any kind of real respect on the series in the way they treated it, both in their the air times on their network, as well as like where it airs on Paramount. I'm saying Cartoon Network, I mean Nickelodeon. Apologize for that. It's right in front of me, Nickelodeon. But the point is, the show has been treated very poorly by the network. It's been shuttled around into different time slots, which is always a bad idea. It's gotten some incredibly bad time slots where they typically stick shows to die. So if anything has caused it to fail, like, there's a lot of reasons. There's marketing, there's bad toys, there's just poor handling by the network, to the point where I don't know who's getting the cartoon for Cyberworld, but I really do hope it's not Nickelodeon, because I don't think they have been a good partner for Hasbro. Also, doesn't help that Paramount Plus is one of the lowest subscription services there is. If you want a lot of kids to see your cartoons, you put them on Netflix, right? So, yeah, those are the fears, and the fear that, because we're going to Cyberworld, that we're kind of going back to the vibe of Cyberverse. What's interesting is that there's no tell of Bumblebee in those listings. However, the Cyberworld name does invoke a few things. It does invoke Cyberverse, which makes me feel like we might be doing something similar, but it also invokes Cybertron itself. So we might be dealing with a series that doesn't go to Earth. Me personally, in this, as a storyteller, I think the Earth connection is important. You need human characters for kids watching to kind of bond with and see themselves in. And you also need perspective characters to introduce viewers to who the Transformers are, what this universe is like. You need someone who's out of the loop in order to explain things to the audience. And that usually ends up being some kid character that's palling around with the Transformers. So when you put it all on Cybertron, you take that away. It's not necessarily what's going to happen, but the idea of Cyberworld does kind of lean into that. So we're not entirely sure. Like I said, right now, it's just a bunch of listings and speculation. But they do tell a lot, don't they? The fact that they're pulling characters like Skybite means that, they want an interesting roster for the toy line. That's great. We see a lot of animals in the listings. Scorponok, Skybite, Bull, whatever the Bull is, Snarl and Grimlock. We got a lot of beasts going on here. That's actually kind of encouraging that they might be doing something, again, a little bit different. I worry about the story, but it seems like the character choices are interesting. I'm still curious why Megatron is listed as Bull. It might just be abbreviation, by the way. It might be a bulldozer in this series, for all we know. But still, why is Megatron and Galvatron both in the listings? I really want to know. Why is Bumblebee not in the listings? I really want to know. This has got me super curious. Concerned, but super curious nonetheless. So, it's just really big, and it's really big news that I have to talk about, and I think it's bigger than just a news roundup can handle. And obviously, I've got a ton of thoughts and directions I want to send this in, so I'm gonna let you guys speculate in the comments below. I'm gonna keep it a little bit short this time, just so we can get this in and out, because it's just raw imagination at this point what this series is going to be. But now we get to talk about it, so feel free to talk about it in the comments below. And as always, I will see you next time.